All right, discussing the topic of the day, which is the killing of Charlie Kirk, a political activist who was murdered in Utah this past week, and really just discussing some of the observations from the fallout and everything that's happening, discussion wise, and more than discussion, some actions happening, of course, as these things tend to become a platform to push different agendas. So I think it goes, well, I wouldn't say it goes without saying, because obviously that's part of this conversation. But for me personally, I can't speak for everybody else. I don't condone any violence or harm towards other people. And we know that in these situations, people tend to conflate anything where, for whatever reason, I always think of the Hitler example where some people are like, if you acknowledge anything positive about Hitler, then you condone in what he did, which is insane. There was backlash. I believe it was Erykah Badu. It was an R&B artist who mentioned that he's a great painter, and people went crazy, like just silly stuff. So obviously, you don't have to agree with what he said or what he did and what he stood for to feel bad or to feel empathy. You don't have to, you don't have to disagree with him and also wish violence or condone that violence. Like, multiple things could be true at once. So there's that part, disclaimer, I guess. So a lot of the conversation, essentially, I think centers around what people should feel and what they shouldn't. And a lot of things are getting twisted up into this. Some things I think are necessary. They're necessary to be part of the conversation. Is necessary context and aspects. Some things are just being done to distract people and try to flip the narrative. So make no mistake that conservative political figures, I'm not saying the entire party, or obviously we're not talking about the constituents, but the people with the big microphones and the people who impact policy, instead of treating this the way they claim it should be treated, which is, hey, this was a person, this person had a family, and we need to be respectful, blah, blah, blah. But yet you have many of them, including the commander-in-chief, of course, who is using this to gaslight more agenda and to perpetuate more agenda and to spark more controversy. Some of the things that I heard, man, is just straight up disgusting. It's just straight up disgusting. And it's so America. It is so America. Because number one, as many people have brought up, there was not all this energy for other deaths. Some might be considered political, whatever you want to call it, but we've had politicians killed. We've had people in the line of duty killed, and then of course we have regular citizens killed, and the energy's not there like it is for this, but this is a lightning rod thing that they can use. So that's why the conversation is different. And so a lot of people are like, we don't need to bring that up. Yes, we absolutely do. Because to me, I think listening to everybody, especially those talking out of both sides of their mouth saying this shouldn't be political, this should be a human thing, this person had a family, but yet in the next sentence you're talking about how it's the extreme leftists and we got to fight back. Like, what are you talking about? You're literally making it political. But then on top of that, if everybody wants to keep claiming that this is about a human losing their life, then I'm forced to naturally think, well, what makes this different? And it reminds me of the whole Ray Rice situation, and I'll tie it together. So this was a big lesson for me. I forgot what year this was, but I was younger, much younger. And so the whole Ray Rice situation in the NFL, where the article and the stories describe the video of Ray Rice assaulting and battering his wife, or fiance at the time, I believe. And so the description was horrific, and I thought this was, it was crazy. And so he got a suspension, and everybody's just like, yeah, cool. But then the video comes out, and then there's a whole new outrage, and I was so confused. I was like, the video wasn't different from what they described. It was exact, beat by beat. I don't understand. And that was my lesson. For whatever reason, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons psychologically and elsewise that people just had a different response. As they say, it's visceral to see it. Now, to me, I don't really care how visceral it is and how it impacts your feelings. Like, it's still the same thing. So if you read somebody did this and you didn't feel bad, but then you saw it and feel bad, that doesn't change the action that they did. But that's just, and honestly, it's probably gotten worse now with social media. Everybody's so used to seeing everything. So I think that was the case here, because it wasn't everybody, but there was enough people to say, a number of people say to be killed like that. And again, I get back into this. So what are these hierarchies for death? It's like, oh, but he had a family, as if that changes him, like the value of his death. Oh, but he was caught on video, as if that changes the value of his death. You know what I mean? So that's been an interesting thing to listen to from people on both sides of the issue, where they continue to try to justify the impact of what this means based on, I won't say arbitrary, but different characteristics. But I would just ask, why is that different? And again, when you ask those questions, so he's not a politician, but politicians have died recently and it wasn't as big. And then again, if a normal person walking down the street and they die and they get killed horrifically, why is that on a different, hierarchy? And so it brings in those age-old ethics and philosophical questions and about death. And it's so funny that I was just watching like this video with some people going through like the trolley problem simulation. So talking about this exact thing and about who deserves to die, who doesn't. Age always comes into play. Impact on the world, like your occupation, things like that. And so for me, man, I think it's just disingenuous. Well, I know it's disingenuous from a lot of people, because they're just using reasons to prop up their argument. They don't actually believe it. Because if we want to keep it 100, then let's keep it 100 and say why you feel like this is more important than somebody else's death. So I just thought all of that discussion was disingenuous. But anyway, so then it comes down to the crux of the matter of who he was and what he did, and people using that to justify how they feel. Now look, again, the major players in the conservative party and a huge, I won't even say huge because I don't know that to be true, but a big enough, a significant amount of conservative MAGA constituents, whatever, clearly are reacting to this because of what he stood for. And so when people get up there, again, talk out of both sides of their mouth, literally hearing like government officials say this stuff, this shouldn't be political. Like, it doesn't matter what side you're on. Like, this is bad. And then again, turn around and be like, we're clearly under attack. the woke left. Like, what? Talking out of both sides of your mouth. And then again, people all online. This isn't about, it doesn't matter what his politics were. But then these are the same people. Again, just look at the actions, look at the rallies, look at what they're saying, look at what they're saying online. We got HBCUs being threatened. Makes no sense. So yeah, people can sit here and say it's not about, we shouldn't care about the politics and blah blah blah, but that's clearly what this is about. Not only from a media narrative standpoint and from the political party standpoint, but from the actual individuals' reactions and their feelings towards Kirk, because they clearly are upset because that's somebody that aligns with their ideology. And so I guarantee you it would not be that way if it was somebody on the other side. So come on, man. And then you had every narrative in the book laid out about the shooter before we even saw the shooter. It's clear that this person, and again, these are elected officials saying this. If you don't know what I'm talking, check the news. Check the news the day of. You got government officials, you got actual elected officials saying this stuff, telling you who the shooter was, why they did. They don't know anything. And so, just again, gaslighting and stoking the flames of controversy and division, while also trying to tell people that they shouldn't be divided. It's so crazy. But again, so to Charlie Kirk, that's not a name I was familiar with, but once I saw his face and I heard Turning Point, I was very familiar with. Turning Point, of course, has some deal at some point with Google, because they were just all over my YouTube at one point, and I could not stand. I was like, what is this stuff? Like, saying the most heinous, racist, sexist, like most discriminatory, bigot stuff I've ever heard. I'm like, what is this on my YouTube? And I'm talking like commercials, not or ads, I should say. And so, YouTube sometimes plays like a long ad that's like actually a video. It'd be stuff like that. Like if I'm washing dishes or whatever, I'd be like, what in the world is this? Also, I work, I've been working with colleges for a long time. So if you aren't around college campuses, you might not be familiar with these groups. But in Turning Point, they're not the only one. There's many groups on both sides of the party that are basically youth activists trying to activate the youth into the either conservative or liberal side, and there's other ones too. And so that's kind of in that vein. But of course, we've had, this is a long time ago, the wave started where they were on campuses, not just, preaching the good word, but started doing debates and stuff. And most people have seen those things. And so, they do come to spark controversy. They do come to energize their base and to antagonize their quote unquote political enemies. And I actually don't know if that was the setting at why Kirk was at the college in Utah, but that is something that he has done pretty often. And so yes, I've been familiar kind of with what they stand for and everything, and I vehemently disagree. Not even disagree. I condemn that. And that's the other piece of this, is that everyone is trying to minimize, like, again, multiple things could be true at once. You can sit here and say that despite someone being completely vile and evil, I respect the fact that there was a loss of human life. You can do those things. But a lot of people are trying to make it like, okay, we got to reduce what he actually did in order to show compassion. No, you don't. You really don't. Oh, because he had political ideas that you disagree with, or you didn't agree with his politics. You didn't know. Absolutely not. And I hope many people have seen this by now. but if not, let me reiterate. Racism is not a policy. This is not a political debate. Discrimination, advocating violence against, oppression, bigotry, they are not policies. These are not political debate topics. It is right and wrong. And again, for the people talking out of both sides of their neck that want to sit here and say, well, this is a human thing, then you need to get on board. When people been saying this forever, these things are not about policies. It's about humanity. And so I don't have, and the only reason people want to make it a political difference of opinion is they're trying to reduce the impact of what the type of things he actually does or did, the type of things that Trump actually does, the things that that party has done. And so again, I don't really care where you fall on the party side, because we've become hyper tribal and people acting like it's a sports team. I don't care about which one you root for. I'm talking about, you could call yourself a Democrat, you call yourself a liberal, you can call yourself whatever you want. If you are promoting racism, if you are promoting sexism, if you are defending violence and killing, if you are perpetuating oppressive ideologies and thought processes, I condemn that. And guess what? I still can sit here and say I condemn that. I condemn everything you said. It was absolutely evil. And I still can say I condemn somebody going out rogue and killing somebody. Those two things could exist at the same time. For me personally, it was interesting back and forth as far as kind of what I felt. And what I landed on is, at the end of the day, I'm not celebrating him being killed, but I'm also not mourning him being killed either. I'm not clapping any hands, and I'm not shedding any tears. Because to me, first of all, number one, and I've said this many times, and hopefully people should know their history, the people are going to speak. They're going to speak one way or another. You know how people say you speak with your dollar, you vote with your dollar. Sometimes you vote at the ballot. Sometimes you vote with your dollars. Sometimes you speak with who you support. Sometimes you speak with action. The people will speak. And I know it's 2025 and people think we're so far away from those people who had to fight for rights, and we are so far away from advocacy and demonstration, but we're not. The people will speak. First of all, we saw it during the quarantine and COVID. People will speak. And not to say that the quarantine was incorrect, but I'm saying when you create enough oppression, I'll just say if you create enough pressure, whatever form it might be, whether it's economically, whether it's policy wise, by people's freedom of movement, whatever it is, people will speak. And we are absolutely in the insane part of the history right now, where this country, and I'm not going to dive into all of that, but this country is in a messed up spot. And the only people who disagree with that are people who blindly refuse to look at the facts, and people who are benefiting from it, which are the people at the top. And of course, the people at the top are happy to continue to press everybody's button to go crazy as long as they feel like they're safe and they keep making money. Because you know what the politicians did right after that? They canceled all their stuff. They didn't want to be out in public. They didn't want to go out there. And so, all the lip service in the world, they could say to the cameras, just like all these conservative people telling you how bad education is and higher education is, yet you look at their kids and see where they went. All of them went to college. And so lip service all day to the camera, but just look at the actions of what they actually do. They don't care about people ruining their lives as long as my life doesn't get touched. And so all that to say that once again, it wasn't shocking to me, because I feel like if you sit just so far outside of somebody's house and you go out there every day for 8 hours a day and you talking crap about them, talking about how terrible they are, you talking about what you gonna do to them, how you gonna, do whatever, but you never do nothing. You just talk crap all day, and then one day somebody's like, hey, that person shot that person. I wouldn't be like, that's what he deserved. I'd be like, yeah, that's a natural conclusion. That's a natural conclusion. And again, I mean, I think we're just so far removed from our, and I don't mean time wise, but like mentally, we're so far removed from the history of not only this country, but every country with uprising and the power of the people. We're so removed that people really think they're untouchable. Like, it's just that internet culture. Like how all these people went online, and that was my other example. Like when these pranks became a big thing, and then they'd be like, oh, you saw that prank person get beat up. Like, I'm not sitting here cheering them on, but I'm also like, I'm not surprised. Yeah, we just got to a point where people think they can do and say whatever they want. And when they get confronted, oh man, come on, it's just for the TV. You know what I mean? And so these people think they can, whether they believe it or not, they think they could get in front of cameras. They think they can get in front of crowds, say heinous things, promote heinous things, and be like, oh man, I'm just talking, that's part of my job. No. As they always say, you got freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of consequence. Just because you want to joke with somebody or you want to say something to somebody doesn't mean they're going to take it that way, and doesn't mean they're going to react in a way that you think they should react. So again, to me, at the end of the day, not shocked, especially now. Like, if things are quote unquote going well, but you talking crazy, that's one thing. But everybody's in a pressure cooker and you still going out there talking crazy. I mean, look, that's just natural. And so I think it's unfortunate. I think it's very unfortunate for a lot of reasons, mainly because that we get to this point that people feel that they need to be heard through other means that aren't, well, I would say are legal in, government channels, but obviously those are broken. And that's what I'm saying. It's sad that people feel they have gotten to the point where they got to be heard through a different way, instead of the way that this country was intended to run. But that's where we are. So again, people can understand not promoting, not condoning that type of violence, that type of behavior. And people also can simply not like or really feel that bad about Charlie Kirk. All right, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. Share it around. Get the convo started. Thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you for listening.